Welcome to the ChicoBag Podcast, where we explore how to leave everything better than we found it. I'm your host, Andy Keller, and today I'm joined by Lauren Watkins from Ecochallenge.org. Ecochallenge helps people take real steps towards sustainability through fun, team-based challenges like the upcoming Earth Month Ecochallenge. It's about building lasting habits and driving change at every level. We'll talk about behavior, culture, and what it really takes to create a more sustainable future. So welcome, Lauren.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, Andy. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. It's first of all, tell us about Eco Challenge. What is Eco Challenge?
Yeah, so Eco Challenge has been around a long time. We actually celebrated our 30th year last year, so that was really exciting. Started out as the Northwest Earth Institute. And so Eco Challenge basically is an online platform where it's an interactive behavior change platform. So anybody this month for Earth Month can participate in our public one for free at earthmonth.ecochallenge.org. And we're essentially an organization that helps you learn about important sustainability topics. Our challenges are structured around themes like reducing plastics or climate action, reducing waste, getting to know your community, and also taking care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard to take care of the planet and other people. So you go online essentially and choose actions that maybe some you're already doing, maybe some you want to learn more about, some that push you a little outside of your, normal habits. And you can compete against other people, or you can set up teams. You can just hang out in the background and just try some new things and dip your toes in the sustainability water if you want to. But the big idea is that we offer these to help people explore this in a safe space. It's all about progress, not perfection. And as you take actions, we have an online dashboard that shows how our collective impact is adding up.
Well, so that's really cool. So anyone is interested in taking an Eco Challenge, and these are short-term sprints, right? Like how many days is the Eco Challenge last for?
Yeah, well, the one that's happening now, Earth Month, is all of April. So it actually started yesterday and it goes through the end of the month. We do one in July of Beyond Plastics. That's also a month, and then one in October. And then sometimes we have a few that are going on almost all year round, like our campus Eco Challenge, and there's a drawdown Eco Challenge. So you can do it for a couple days or a week. You can just, kind of plug in and out and see what works for you. And then in addition to the Eco Challenges, we also have what we call our discussion books online for sale. And so schools, corporations, churches, families, people will buy these, and kind of it's like a book club. Remember those when that was popular? Hopefully still is in some places. And you can read about thought leaders' perspectives on different kinds of topics like food and systems change, and then have discussions. And we have some of those discussion questions built into the Eco Challenges too, if you're more social like me and you want to chat with other people.
So as far as the teams, it sounds like, groups of people within a company or a church, or like, how are these teams formed, and how does that work exactly?
Yeah. So, this month our sponsor is Emerson. So for example, Emerson is doing it as their company wide, and different departments can set up teams inside the Eco Challenge. So, I'm making up an example, but let's say HR wants to compete against the product development team, then they could set up your organization can set up different teams like that and compete against each other. But if you're not part of an organization or a group, you can join alone and join our community team, so that you have a place to at least be on a team and chat with each other, or just see what other people who are also participating solo are up to. It's really easy. Anybody can go online. Anybody can set up a team. You could even set up one and challenge your friend if you want to.
So it's called Eco Challenge because, ultimately you're asking people to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or maybe it's not part of their, daily routine currently. So I know you have some background in habit change. Why is changing habits? I know it is really tough. Like, why is it so tough?
Yeah, so my background is in environmental psychology, so that's pretty much exactly what I specialize in. So the psychology of change for taking sustainability behaviors, which is, different than some kinds of behavior change, like trying to work on your health and your diet, or trying to overcome an addiction. When it comes to behavior change for sustainability and conservation, sometimes habits are tricky because the default option in our life is not always the most sustainable one or the easiest one, right? So Where I live, for example, there's no public transportation. I've never lived anywhere with public transportation before. So the default option is that I have to drive my car somewhere far, or I can ride my bike if possible, but there's not even a lot of safe places to do that. So that's an example of like where sometimes a habit that's really good for the planet is hard because the system around us isn't very conducive to that kind of change. But aside from that, in general, habits are just hard. They're sticky, right? I mean, starting a new habit is challenging. I have a whole graveyard of gym memberships in my past, and I've been working on it, and it's always a process. So I think the thing that makes it what we found in psychology around behavior change for the environment is that social norming is the most powerful thing that you can do. So that's why participating in these challenges helps. Just yesterday on the first day, there were thousands of posts about what people were doing, what they're trying, what's difficult, what was hard. And so when people see each other coming together, it tells us that it's normal to have concerns about the environment or to struggle to remember to bring your reusable bags somewhere, that these things are normal instead of us kind of like withdrawing and feeling that shame. So yeah, to make a habit stick, you have to do it publicly and have a support system, whether it's structural or your family or friends. That's one of the things we try to sort out in our eco challenges is helping people learn about the system they're working in and giving them a place to chat with other people who are also learning and failing together to build new habits.
So let's talk about that in the context of climate change. So, climate change is an issue that, the science is pretty clear, yet people, still are having a hard time getting their head around it, either because it's just, I think there's some mental blocks there, but then, at the kind of ground level, it's like, well, what could any of us individually do that would actually change the climate in a positive way? So can you share with us some of your insight around that topic and as far as behavior change?
Yeah, that's a really, really, really big topic, and
Yes.
it's hard. Because you've got climate change and you've got the climate around talking about climate change, right? And both are kind of sticky. I think it's Yale that does a study I think it's every spring or fall, don't quote me on that, but at least every year they do a study where they're trying to figure out like how many Americans believe climate change is happening now. And then they also ask how many people actually are talking about it. And I've been following that study for years. And just in the last couple of years, that percentage of people that believe it's happening is going up. So that's hopeful, despite how it might not feel that way all the time when it comes to policies and anyway, things like this. But it is true that people believe it's happening. But the interesting thing, the inverse is happening where the percent of people that are talking about it is going lower and lower. And a lot of studies have shown us that the best thing we can do about climate change is talk about it. So yes, you can buy a hybrid. You can, take public transportation if it's available. You can do a lot of things, but the most important thing we can do is talk about it. And that goes back to that social norming I mentioned a minute ago. When people feel like it's normal and safe to be worried about a topic or to be doing something for it, they're more likely to keep engaging with it and feel more hopeful. So that's my first thing about climate is talking about it. Let go of some of the guilt you might have if you can't afford to buy a Prius or whatever, and just have conversations so it shows the people you interact with that it's normal to be worried. And then there's a whole other a topic about how those conversations can go that we can chat about today if you like, but especially when it's with people that maybe you don't know as well or you're a little nervous about having those conversations with.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind when I hear you say that is, it's not polite to talk politics or religion, with people, just in general, I guess. And it seems like climate change, is considered either politics or religion. So how do we get out of, how do we change the conversation so that people can maybe detach that notion that, climate change isn't about
Mm-hmm.
politics or religion?
Yeah, you ask such great questions, Andy. So, again, I'll tell you like a tiny quick story. About 15 years ago, I was a park ranger in Florida, and I was lucky enough to get into this program called the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Interpretation. So it was a 2-year training program funded by the National Science Foundation very well funded to do really large scale research on what Americans and Canadians think about climate change, how they're feeling, how to have conversations that won't result in you getting in a fight or bridging into politics or religion. And I put in my out of office assistant on email that I was at this climate change communication training. So excited. See you in a week. I was at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And I got this very quick slap on the hand from leadership at the time. They're no longer there. That I was not allowed to use those words, that was inappropriate, and I was going to be disciplined if I didn't change my out of office message immediately. And then over the next 15 years from then to now, it feels like it's come full circle. There was so much work I did. I'm even the past president of that organization now. And I did a lot of training on how to have these conversations. And then now we're back to getting lists where we're not allowed to use these words again. So it can feel like we're not making progress and that it's all politics and all religion. But it's not, and there are ways we can have the conversation where it doesn't necessarily steer that way, even though it feels like we're taking steps back, at least for me personally, when I share that like little story, what's happening. When I train people on how to talk about climate change, it's all about framing, how we frame the conversation. And with that group of research that we did, we found that if you try to align it with a value that people care about already, then that's your foot in the door, right? If you can't assume that people care about the climate or sustainability for the same reasons that we do. Some people care about it because they want to be stewards of God's planet. If they're religious, some people care more about the economics of it, and that's fine. But especially when you don't know people very well, the two values that's tested the best with Americans are talking about, regardless of why it's happening, we need to protect the places that we care about from harm or responsibly manage our natural resources. Most people aren't going to agree with protecting your house, protecting your community, protecting your family, protecting future generations. So that's a foot in the door. And then one of the really important things, though, is making sure your conversations aren't preachy. We're not vomiting a bunch of facts on people about atmospheric carbon dioxide, that instead you can use metaphors that explain how climate change works really quickly and easily without sounding like a preachy science nerd like I can do sometimes on accident. Because sometimes we'll use data and facts, as like a security blanket or armor, and when we're nervous, especially, and people just don't respond well to that. And so one of my favorite metaphors to explain climate change quickly in a conversation is that when we are producing all this excess carbon dioxide by the way we live today, it creates a heat trapping blanket around the earth that causes global temperatures to rise. And that helps people come with a solution better than focusing on something that may not be as tied, like recycling. Instead, now we're focusing on the excess carbon dioxide instead of things that may not be a direct connection to climate change. So if that makes sense, you can kind of think about conversations as like a framing endeavor where it's, let's tap into values. Let's make sure we're clear about what we're talking about, so we're not getting stuck in like the ozone or something over here that isn't really related anymore. And then the way to really, hopefully have a positive conversation, focus on solutions, the future, things that people are doing, real people, real examples, like the person you're having a conversation with, if possible.
So, what are some of the eco challenges, or activities that have been, as part of the eco challenge that people can do, to lessen their impact? Like, what do you think are the most impactful, things that people can do that you've learned?
Well, there's the impact taking individual actions has on us. That's just as important as like, is the impact fixing the problem worldwide, right? So sometimes we can feel like, oh, me switching to a reusable bag is just a drop in the bucket, so why bother? But when the big thing about the eco challenges is we have actions at different levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced actions, and you should start where you are. And when you try something, ideally, if it goes well, you'll feel good about it and you want to keep doing it. And that has an important impact on you because it gives you the strength to keep going. Because when everything's doom and gloom all the time, people shut down. We can't be upset all the time about everything. So we try to come up with some small things people who might be beginners can try just to feel good about themselves, have some self-efficacy. And then we have more advanced things that, maybe statistically they're more likely to reduce carbon dioxide or have a bigger impact on systems. Some of those kinds of things are advocacy, understanding where you're investing your money, being mindful about that, speaking with your dollar, reaching out to civic leaders and people that are setting policy. There's a little bit of everything for everybody, depending on where you are. And, the impact is twofold: the impact we have globally, but also the impact you have on yourself, and just strengthening these sustainability muscles, so that you're ready to like try something a little bit harder and get more and more out of your comfort zone next time you're looking for something you can do.
Yeah, the idea of speaking with your dollars is interesting because we all have, most of us have, savings for the future. We're taking that money, and a lot of us have it in investments or stocks, and I think there's a notion that I want to save for retirement and I want to get the biggest return, and maybe can I do that and at the same time support my values or the change I want to see in the world by investing in the types of companies or that are doing good on the environment, and divesting of some of the, I guess, industries or companies that we that aren't part of the future we envision currently with the current business models, right? So do you have any like insight around that topic as far as misconceptions or easy actions, or how do people navigate that?
It's really tricky because you have to first have the access to time to sit and research where your 401k might be invested and how to make decisions like that. And also it can be a pretty privileged thing to afford a financial planner to help you make decisions like that. So the first thing is like just acknowledging that that is a really complicated and time intensive and intimidating thing. Like for me, I didn't grow up with a huge background in personal finance and investing. So you really have to do a lot of self education, and that takes time. So going easy on yourself there. And if you log in and you realize, oh, like, wow, I got a lot of stuff invested in things that maybe didn't align with my values, but now I'm scared. I don't know what to do. There are resources out there to help people with investment. There are funds that are already set up that are aligned around water or values like um, sustainable innovation. And there are already mutual funds set up that are meant to invest in companies that are not reliant on fossil fuels. So some of those things already exist. And I'm not a financial planner, but I can say that I have explored a little bit and started to dabble in putting my money in those sorts of places. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but going back to it, when we talk about it and I sit and I'm having happy hour with my girlfriends and I'm explaining, like, I'm learning about personal finance, we all got kind of excited. We're like, well, what are you learning? What did you find out? I'm explaining what I'm doing and the funds that I picked out that I'm watching. And I just started with a little, just a couple $100 in each one to see what happens. But it's making me feel more empowered, not to sound cheesy, but about like how to manage my money to align with my values on an investment side. And when it comes to just everyday purchasing, that's a lot easier, of course, than getting into like long-term investment strategies. But you can also talk with your dollars day to day with looking for sustainable labels and trying to think about, does the company align with your values? But if you're just doing that in a vacuum and you're not talking about it with people, it's not really going to shift much because people won't know you're doing it. We have to have these conversations. I think that's the most important thing, is ask other people, have you ever looked at divesting, or what are you investing in? Where do you shop? So you reduce plastics. Those kind of things are really powerful.
So I'm hearing, the that having the conversation, is part of, I guess, what you're calling social norming, right? Which is really like the idea of just connecting, right, with other people and being safe, feeling safe enough to have a conversation about certain topics that are important, um, which seems really empowering. It seems connecting. It seems like it checks all the buttons of what we need as humans, right? Like we're social creatures. We want to belong. We want to connect. And it seems like, creating the opportunities to do that, Eco Challenge is one of those ways you can do that. Going out with your girlfriends, like you said, and chatting about a certain topic is another way. What other ideas do you have, like how people can, create the community and meet their needs while at the same time addressing some of these bigger environmental issues?
Yeah, I was actually at an event last night called Breaking Bread and Barriers in my town, and it was all about exploring what liberty and justice mean for different people in our community. And we were randomly assigned to tables and had roles and discussion questions, and it was odd and uncomfortable, but I left like really excited. And, it was just like a powerful experience to sit and talk to people I didn't know that weren't necessarily from the same background as me. Because, like you said, people are social and we need that connection. But that's not for everybody. My husband's a huge introvert, and I thought he might kill me when we realized that we were going to be interacting with strangers. So, um, so I tell you that story to say that there are a lot of people doing cool things out there, because one of the things our table talked about last night was that we have all these options to connect with people on social media and internet, and but we feel more disconnected than ever. A lot of people think, I'm not saying anything new that you probably haven't thought about yourself. And people much smarter than me have done huge research about one of the best things we can do for our own well-being and the planet is join a group, whether it's online on Eco Challenge and it's just a digital group, digital community, or you find something in person, even if it's bowling or pickleball or whatever, or arts and crafts. But having face-to-face interactions with people, regardless of it being framed as an environmental behavior or not, just getting back around community, and especially starting locally with near where you live. And one of the actions in our Eco Challenge this month for Earth Month is meeting a neighbor or coworker or colleague you have never talked to and building that relationship. And while that doesn't seem necessarily like an environmental behavior on paper, once people see your values and what you care about, we're more likely to influence each other that way and have that ripple effect. So that's like one of the best things you can do. Just find a group, any group, for any reason, hopefully not nefarious, obviously, but and reconnect with people and then talk about what you're doing.
I think that's really good advice because that hits at so many different levels, right? Like we have a mental health crisis. Young people are reportedly the loneliest in any
Mm-hmm.
generation. We are connected and kind of interacting online, yet we're lonely. And what you're suggesting here is just a very simple thing. It's like go out and join a group, talk to the neighbor that you never talked to,
Yeah.
these things. And believing that you have an impact, that connection would result in something good because, we all have something inherently good to share.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty empowering. I think that's great advice. And the Eco Challenge is happening right now. So how can people like sign up and get involved, right, with Eco Challenge?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it started yesterday and it goes through April 30th. And you just go to earthmonth.ecochallenge.org, or if you Google combination of that, you'll get there. It's pretty front and center. I think we have over 7,300 people when I checked a little while ago that are participating from all over the world. So it's a big group. And you just join, set up an account like you would for pretty much all the other things you have online, and then choose that community team. Or if you can create a team if you want to, and then invite other people to join that. And then what you're going to see is kind of like our action library. So the actions are in different categories, like wildlife, community, health and well-being. And let's say, like for me, I'll give you a real life example. So I went to community and I chose meet a neighbor or talk to a neighbor I haven't talked to in a while. And so I added that action to my dashboard. And then there will be some resources there that you can click if you want to learn more or get some, it's like, here's some tips on how to talk to people you've never met. It'll have things that support you. Because awareness is just the first step, but the action is the next thing. So we want to help you take those actions. So then I talked to my neighbor who we do not align politically. You would have seen that from the signs in our yards during the election. But I was talking to him about how I love working on composting projects. And now he set out a bucket by our fence. And he's like, okay, I'll just start putting our food scraps here and text you when you have compost. And so that's what I mean about the power of talking to people, because now I've got not one neighbor, but two neighbors composting. And so once you've had that conversation, you go on the dashboard and check in or click that you did it, and then you get points. And that's where you can compete with people. And at the end, we even have some prizes. You'll get emails and alerts of how these things work. So yeah, it's pretty easy, and you can do it at your own pace. And if you forget a day, that's okay. My best advice is just be easy on yourself and just kind of poke around in there and see if there's something new that you want to try. And also, you can add actions you already do just so you can see what you're already doing, because there's some power to that too. And you can add those and click, I already do this, so that you can, give yourself a little pat on the back for taking the actions that you're already doing.
That's really I really like that because I mean, I'm competitive. I like to compete. I also like to win. So having the ability to win prizes certainly, speaks to that. And the thing I really love about Eco Challenge is at the end, all these little activities, and even if you join and you don't fully participate, maybe do a couple things, those things do count. And to the bigger Eco Challenge, dashboard is of impact, so everyone
Mhm.
together in this eco challenge at the end, it's pretty cool to see, the huge impact that all these people doing little things, actually realize. So I think that's great.
Yeah, man, and you can see the impact of the team, of yourself, like all of us together. And when you're checking in, it's actually adding like, okay, number of minutes everybody spent learning, or invasive species plants removed, or conversations people had, or money donated and projects supported. So it's counting these things so that we can see it add up, because that really, besides the social norming, positive reinforcement like that keeps
Yeah.
people motivated. And yeah, it's just like there's really tangible impacts that happen from doing these things
Yeah. I mean, I want to know that,
online.
that it makes a difference, and especially in today's like world where it's just like, am I making a difference? So having
Mhm.
that validation certainly would help. So anyone listening, ecochallenge.org, if we want to get, connected and have some new activities and maybe be surprised at some of the additional benefits that you get, from joining a group and doing something fun together. So thank you so much, Lauren, for joining the podcast. I think if you're willing to come back, I'd love to talk some more about behavior change and how we, can make the world a better place. So thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to nerd out about behavior change and environmental psychology anytime.
All right.